Where it says Theodore Roosevelt. Now, sometimes you look at presidents, in fact, most presidents I've seen in my life, you watch them get old right in front of your eyes. It's an extremely difficult job. Things happen, crises, they wake up in the middle of the night. There's all sorts of issues with regards to the country and Congress and passing legislation. You watch people become gray almost overnight in the presidency. The best example? Jimmy Carter. That man became an old man right in front of your eyes. Barack Obama. Have you ever seen pictures of him from when he was running for president the first time? He's older now because it's stressful. It's stressful. But there are some people who just love it. They just love it. And Theodore Roosevelt is one of them. Okay? Theodore Roosevelt, this person who just attacked everything with passion and abandon. For example, people would go ahead and make reservations to talk to him, make an appointment to go talk to him, and he would show up, and you'd have to go ahead and go walk with him. He was going to go on a hike. We can talk politics while we hike, right? I mean, he was actually really into judo. You hear this thump, thump, thump. What was it? It's President Roosevelt getting flipped on the second floor of the White House. Boom. I mean, he had young kids. He was a vigorous young president who had a lot to do and a lot of energy. For example, there's a story of the French ambassador who made an appointment to see the president. He shows up in his silk suit, wearing white gloves, very formal, and the president says, "Come talk with me while we hike." He's wearing his hiking outfit. This is the days when Washington, D.C. wasn't quite as built up as it is now. So they're hiking and talking politics, and they come up to the Potomac River, and what does Theodore Roosevelt do? Takes off his clothes, swims across the Potomac River. What does the French ambassador do? Takes off his clothes, swims across the river also. And Theodore Roosevelt, I like this guy. This is a person we can do business with. Except the guy kept on his white gloves, right? And Theodore Roosevelt finally said, Why did you leave your white gloves on? Why take off everything but keep your white gloves on? The guy said, well, we might encounter ladies. I want to remain decent. That's what he was. He was a very popular president. For example, the anthracite coal strike, when the people at large in the American voting public, when they saw him go ahead and take that vigorous action to solve this strike for the good of the country, they liked him. He easily won re-election in 1904, and he would have easily won re-election in 1908. Personally, he was very popular with the voting public. But he decided to go ahead and follow the example of President Washington and to leave after 2 terms. Okay? So he went ahead and went off to Africa to go hunt big game. And he went ahead and basically said, Bill Taft is going to be my successor. I handpick him to continue my progressive policies to go ahead and combat the trusts and bring about a square deal. In fact, look on your notes. Seychelle, I think I mentioned the fact that DBQ is coming up. Seychelle? Yes? Look at your notes. Seychelle, when you think of Theodore Roosevelt, what are the mnemonics that you use to remember all of his policies? The 3 C's. And also the square deal and the new nationalism. The new nationalism, the square deal, and the 3 C's. Win or lose, what do the 3 C's stand for? You want to have these memorized. Control corporations, conservation of natural resources, and consumer protection. Okay. Now, underneath those things, Amanda, what happened during his administration to go ahead and control corporate cunning?
Didn't he get the press on his side to go against big
the
corporations?
muckrakers. On Monday, we'll talk about nothing but muckrakers. But what were acts of Congress passed before his time, during the Gilded Age, which would allow government to go ahead and regulate business, especially railroads? The Interstate Commerce Act went ahead and set up the Interstate Commerce Commission, which had never really been used to regulate railroad rates, right? Saying that you can't charge more than this. Also, the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. The Sherman Antitrust Act gives the government the power to break up monopolies. It had never been used, right, until the Progressive Era, until Theodore Roosevelt. You also have the Hepburn and the Elkins Act, which go ahead and giving free passes to politicians from the railroads, giving them free passes to travel on the railroads by the railroad companies is illegal. And also it goes ahead and makes it illegal to have different prices for different customers. This kind of secret rebate system, which they have with Rockefeller, that kind of thing becomes illegal. You have to charge a price to all different people. The Hepburn Act and the Elkins Act, these are acts passed by Congress, signed by President Roosevelt, trying to go ahead and bring more fairness to the business world. Yeah.
So the Interstate Commerce and the Sherman Antitrust Act were before
Yes.
Roosevelt, and the Hepburn and Elkins were during.
Yes. But the reality is this, even though the Sherman and the Interstate Commerce Act were around, people hadn't been using them, right? It doesn't matter if you have these laws if you don't enforce them, right? The Gilded Age presidents hadn't enforced them. Yeah.
Oh wait, how could the like Sherman Antitrust Act able to pass if all the politicians were kind of corrupt?
Because it's too simple to say all of them are corrupt. There was this public feeling that these monopolies were doing bad things. They passed a law, but they never got around to actually doing the hard work of enforcing it and busting up some of these big businesses.
So, so those politicians, but it wasn't it like the majority of politicians were getting bribes? Or is it?
You're speaking in general things, very generally. I would sit there and say
No,
that most politicians were probably honest, but when it came down to certain state legislatures especially, and certain laws, you could put pressure on them to go easy on politicians or even to change the law.
Okay, so the corruption is not, corruption wasn't that like big scale, it was.
Corruption is something which is always going to be under the table, quietly done, right, in the darkness. Right. And there was plenty of that around, right? But not everyone was corrupt by any measure. But the reality was, in terms of the zeitgeist, in terms of the public feel out there, no one until Theodore Roosevelt really had kind of the guts or even the energy or the vision to actually really take them on, right? People pretty much just went ahead and kind of were quiet. Politicians didn't really do too much. They simply let business kind of run things. As one later American president would sit there and say, the business of America is business. Theodore Roosevelt would sit there and say, the business of America is business as long as it's socially useful. And if it's not, whack 'em. Yeah.
The square deal again, what was it?
The square deal means that the entire system can't be rigged against people. You have to go ahead and have certain fairness in the American economic system. And if there is unfairness, we'll change it to make it fair. To give a square deal to everyone. You can not a rigged deal, a square deal. So Otto, in a DBQ, you want to be talking about the progressives, talking about in the public interest, using the government to serve the people, to increase the public welfare, right? To use government as an agency of making the world better, of progress, of progressives, right? So what happened? Big Bill Taft right here became the person who became the successor for Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt said, American people, vote for him because he's going to continue my policies, right? Bill Taft did not want to be president. He wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. After he was president, he did become the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But his wife wanted him to be president. So he decided to run for president because, as all those who are married know, happy wife, happy life. So he went ahead and decided to go ahead and become a president. And he wasn't really that good at politics. He didn't play the game very well. Bottom line, he does become the next president. And while Roosevelt's in Africa hunting big game, he starts to hear disturbing reports of what Taft is doing. He's not doing what Roosevelt would have wanted him to do. For example, he gets into a nasty dispute with the conservationist Clifford Pinchot. Clifford Pinchot and Theodore Roosevelt and John Muir were the very most cutting-edge progressives when it comes to protecting the environment. They looked at forests almost as religious symbols of don't touch these things. Some of the other Republicans thought that he went too far, and some of the more big business Republicans began to put pressure on Taft to fire Clifford Pinchot. Ultimately, he does. He does go ahead and get rid of Pinchot. When Theodore Roosevelt hears that his brother-in-arms to preserve forests have been fired, by that point, he's almost ready to publicly break with his previous friend, Bill Taft, and fight him for the 1912 presidential nomination for the Republican Party. Now, clearly, what should have Roosevelt have done? He should have said, I had my moment in the sun, I'm retired, other people are going to go ahead and do it now. Okay, that's what he should have done. But that would have been very much not in character for Teddy Roosevelt. He could not go ahead and not get involved. He still was a young man. He had things to do. He had vision for the country. So he comes back to the country and he begins to go ahead and fight against Taft for the Republican nomination in the 1912 presidential election. By publicly opposing Taft, he forces Taft to go further and further into the arms of those very conservative Republicans who were the manufacturers, the regular Republicans who liked high tariffs and they liked exploiting the environment for profit. Okay, so you have a showdown for the Republican Party between Taft and Roosevelt, and who wins? Taft. Why? Well, Roosevelt's way more popular with the people, but Taft was the sitting president. He was the incumbent, and also he had more of the political party members. He had more of the Republican Party machinery, the loyal people who actually went to the nomination. So by the time the Republican Party had their convention, Taft was the person who's going to be the person in charge there, who's running for the party. And then Theodore Roosevelt said, fine, I'll go ahead and create my own political party. And he said, I'm going to call it the Bull Moose Party, because I'm strong as a bull moose and I'm ready to be president again. I'm going to go outside the idea, outside the Republican Party. So this is what happens. He splits the Republican Party between the regular conservative Republicans and the progressive Republicans who join his own party. And once the Republicans split, the Democrats can win the election. If you don't keep discipline in your party, the other party will beat you. The Democrats are like, oh, we haven't won the presidency since like 1892, right? There's only been one Democratic president since the Civil War, Grover Cleveland, 2 non-consecutive terms. And finally, they're going to go ahead and have the chance to elect Woodrow Wilson. Why is Woodrow Wilson president? Because Theodore Roosevelt split the party into 2. It's that simple. It is that simple. If Bill Taft had run unopposed by Roosevelt, he would have been the president and Woodrow Wilson would have lost. And we would have had a different president at the beginning of World War I, which would have been a whole different thing. One small interesting note, while he was campaigning for his own political party in Milwaukee, a crazy man walked up and shot Theodore Roosevelt in the chest. The book talk about this? No? A man shot him, and if you actually go to the Smithsonian, you can actually see this glass case. And the bullet went through his chest, went through his jacket, and it went right through his speech. He had a speech right here. It went through his speech, hit his steel glass case, and bounced off of it, and entered into his chest. Okay, and it rested there right above his lung. And the reality was that, just right there, Patrick, thank you. How far did you get?
Up to 29.
He got shot, and then he walks up there, he gets shot, and he's like, everyone, can you see this? I've just been shot. I don't know if I've been shot. And he's like, but it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. And then he proceeded to go ahead and give his entire speech for an hour, full of adrenaline, all hyped up, bleeding all over the place. And then after he gave this speech, they took him to the hospital, and he almost died because he lost so much blood for not going to the hospital, right? But it's very much in character, right? It takes more than that to kill a bull moose, and he gave the entire speech while he's bleeding there in front of everyone. Again, in character. In character for the guy, yeah.
So the assassinator, did he get caught?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah, he was another mentally deranged anarchist. Yeah, yeah. So the question would be, who shot Theodore Roosevelt? I don't know who it was.
I don't really.
He was shot by John Schrank, who had been having disturbance.
Shrank.
Pierre was shot in the chest, shot in an assassination by John Schrank, who had been having disturbing dreams about TR's predecessor, William McKinley, and also thought that no president should serve more than 2 terms. That's a good reason to shoot him. Okay, so there it is. So, where was I here? And that makes Woodrow Wilson president. Okay, does anyone have any questions here with regards to what happened with Taft and the controversy about Clifford P. Show? How he went ahead and fired him, angering Theodore Roosevelt even further, breaking a total break with him in a contest for the Republican Party nomination in 1912, and then Taft wins that, and then Roosevelt starts the Bull Moose Party, his third party, breaking the Republican unity and allowing the Democrats to win the election.
What was the person's name that he fired?
That he what?
Fired?
Clifford Pinchot, P-I-N-C-H-O-T. He was like one of his brothers in arms to save nature, right? A very strict conservationist, and also the father of the National Park Service. All National Park Rangers basically are employed in an organization started by Clifford Pinchot. Okay, well, let's go ahead and grade the chapter pack.